On today's episode of the Show the Art podcast, our guest was
the one and only Budo Jake.
He's the host of Rolled Up and This Week in BJJ.
A black belt in jiu-jitsu and just telling us different stories, learning different things, the people that he's met.
He's a world traveler. He talks about meditation. He talks about all the big tournaments going out now, Metamoris, EBI, Polaris.
The history of jiu-jitsu and training and just a whole bunch of great things that we all learn from, guys.
Yeah, so we really enjoyed it, and we hope you do as well. And
if you did, and you do, please like, share, subscribe, and rate.
5 stars, baby.
Mic check.
Welcome, everybody. Today we have on the Show the Art podcast one of the greats in jiu-jitsu coverage around the world, and he brings us a lot of media, a lot of good stories, a lot of good videos, and a great show in Rolled Up. Budo Jake.
Thanks for having me on, Ames and Abe.
Thank you. Sir. We also have, for people who are listening, a good friend of mine, a student of mine, and my strength and conditioning coach, Ames.
What's going on, guys? Great to be here. I'm coming from a novice standpoint. I just became a blue belt, so I'm gonna be if I'm on or if I have the privilege to go on, I'm gonna be asking those questions, just how to get better and just learning from the people that are up there where I want to be. Boom.
Perfect. Jake, how are you? It's nice to talk to you again, my friend.
Thank you. Yeah, it's great being on the show.
Yeah, last time I came to San Diego. I visited a couple of schools, and I made it a point to visit Budo Studios. Is that what you call it?
Yep.
And visit you, and it was a great time, and I really appreciate you showing me around the whole facility. It was amazing.
Yeah, I'm sure it's like when people come from out of town to Southern California, it's like going to Disneyland for a kid. There's so many options, and some people will tell you, well, you didn't go to this place. Why did you not go there? It's like there's so many good places to train.
Yeah, absolutely.
How many people visit you every year?
It's a countless number. We have a lot of guys that come in and they wanted to see the studio and this and that. And it's, it's not like a museum, so you can't really accommodate everybody. But I do appreciate, all the fans from all the stuff that we've made over the years. It's
That's
nice.
Awesome, man.
Of course, awesome. Man. Yeah. And the place was humongous.
Was it?
Yeah, it was really big. And they have a cool mat space somewhere in the back.
That's awesome.
I didn't get the privilege to step on those mats, but maybe one day.
One day. Oh, is that
right.
Jinx? Yeah. It's kind of cool because I started this whole journey a year ago, and I remember where I would train here at Subforce, and when I would get back to my place, I would watch videos of your videos, and the first video that I watched was yours with Andre Galvao, the jiu-jitsu missionary, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, and then every time I would get back from training, I would just watch more and more your videos. So it's kind of cool how full circle, like I get to talk to you. So I'm trying hard not to go fanboy and geek out. So yeah, trying to stay composed.
Yeah, it's funny. I'll see comments. I generally make it a rule not to read YouTube comments.
Okay.
But once in a while I do, and it's funny to go back and look at some of those old videos because I don't know how many years I've been doing it, but I started when I was, I think, a new purple belt. Wow. And, people get better over time.
Absolutely,
and when you're rolling with world champions, the best in the world, you're going to get smashed.
That brings me to my first question. You've rolled with so many different guys from your travels and from doing your show. Who is the guy, and not to disrespect anybody else, but who is the guy where you felt the most, I don't know, helpless against?
Yeah, I get this question in a lot of different forms, and the way most people phrase it, I like the way you phrase it, but a lot of people will say like, "Who is the best?"
Yeah,
and that's such a subjective statement. Yeah, and like the guy I felt helpless with was Eric Paulson, but he has over 100 pounds on me, so you're going to feel helpless against a super technical guy with that much weight.
Sure.
But so the way I like to phrase it is the guy I felt helpless that had pure technique, very little strength, and not much weight, and that was Kyotera.
Wow.
And he's
one of the smallest guys.
The smallest, and seriously one of the weakest. He's not a strong guy. Guys like Bruno Malfacini, who are much shorter, was way stronger than Kyo. But Kyo just has really precise technique. I was very impressed.
And it shows in his competitions, especially one of his last fights at the Berkut Open or whatever the event. his match was so calm and composed and sharp, and even like after the match when he was done, it barely looked like he was breathing hard. He's so impressive.
Nice.
Right.
Ames, do you have a question?
Yes, I do. What made you want to go out and interview all these people? Oh, actually, it's kind of a two-part question. When did you start, or how did you start this whole jiu-jitsu journey, and then how did that transition to you like meeting all these people, wanting to learn more?
Okay. Yeah, so I started martial arts when I was 13 years old. So it's been, to date myself, almost 30 years now of training. So
that's amazing.
That is awesome.
And so back in, I don't even know what year that was, in the late 80s, jiu-jitsu was not even a thing in America. So I was doing karate back then, like a lot of kids did. And I was really more interested in the spiritual side of things. I went into Aikido. Really dove deep into that, did that for 20 years, and did that in America and Japan. Was teaching a class at my university, and just really enjoyed that. But it got to the point where I wanted something new. There's always less. The more, Ames, you're at the blue belt level, you're learning so much stuff every day, but eventually it kind of, gets less and less. Even when you're a black belt in jiu-jitsu, there's still more stuff to learn for sure, but particularly in the traditional martial arts, there's not new techniques being created every day. So to be honest, it gets a little boring after a while. So I was up for a new challenge, and my wife said, "You know what? Let's do jiu-jitsu." And I'm like, "All right, hey, if you're going to do it, I'll check that out." So we went, and it was a big challenge, and I loved it right away. And ended up doing it. The guys who I was training with back then, it was Carlos Gracie Jr. and Marcio Feitosa, both moved to Southern California, and that's where I started, and I've been there ever since.
Awesome.
So
that's
love
amazing.
those guys. And but I made it very clear in the beginning that, look, jiu-jitsu is my job, martial arts is my job. I'm going to be traveling around, talking to people, going to other gyms. So, I don't want to be hearing any of this creonch type of stuff. I have never signed up at another academy, never became a student of anybody, but I was going to be, traveling around and interviewing people and training. And I don't think there should be a problem with that. And there never was.
Yes.
But whenever I would get back to my home academy, people would ask me, "Hey, what did you learn from Gokor or Kaio or whoever I might have visited?" And I'd show them, and then I'd go to another class and somebody would ask me the same questions. And so I found myself having to repeat myself over and over. So I said, you know what? I'm going to bring a video camera next time.
Nice.
And then you guys and anybody else can just watch it online. So
that's awesome.
If you watch some of the early episodes, it has a very low production value, but you still see the techniques and stuff.
Yeah. So that's the inception of Rolled Up?
That's right. That's right.
Wow, that's a great story. So that's a good point. One of the things you touched on was the whole creonch thing, and for those of you who don't know, that kind of means traitor in Portuguese, right?
Okay.
Yep.
And a lot of people, I know for a good example, I don't want to call out the person, but a few towns over, there's a school. Someone I know trains there. And they describe their instructor as he doesn't want anybody from outside schools coming in, and he doesn't want his student training at any other school. And his reasoning behind this is, we stick together. We're old school martial arts. We don't want to give away any of our secrets. We don't want to expose what we have here, our gold. When I don't know where that stems from. I don't know if that stems from insecurity or not understanding true value of martial arts, but I think it's very much okay to go and visit your friend's school and train with other people from time to time.
Well, I'd like to share my thoughts on that.
Please.
I do think it can stem from insecurity, and in some cases definitely does. But if we look back at the early stages of martial arts in Japan with the samurai, they were teaching people how to kill people.
Yeah.
And so if I'm showing you a really cool way to kill someone, and then you take that information to my enemies and teach them, then that's going to really risk the survival of my clan. So I think that's maybe where the roots stem from. But can you imagine in this modern day and age if doctors decided, we're going to keep all the information for ourselves and we're not going to share it? Like, that would be terrible. And think about all the great progress that we've made because there's so much sharing worldwide.
Interesting.
And I in this modern age, I I don't really think there's a space for keeping secrets like that. But hey, some people like John Danaher, for example, have obviously some great heel hook details.
Sure.
And it would be foolish for him to just let anybody come in and take that knowledge, because they're winning tournaments and they're improving their image. So there is a place for it.
Very, very good point. And just to piggyback on that, like you said, early stages of martial arts, they were developed to defend yourself, to not get killed, to defend your clan, your family, your everywhere that you live. But the modern day, self-defense is not as needed as it once was, especially defending your life. Forget about defending your physical being and from a bully or from a small fight, but defending your life. It's not as necessary. So I guess my point is, like, there's no need to hide everything, but it's a good point that you made about Danaher and high level guys going. If I go to Andre Gaval's school and I'm in the brown belt division and he has all his brown belts there training for their tournament, we're in the same division. Of course, he's going to want to keep some of those things to himself. But it shouldn't deter him from accepting me as a student if I move.
Right, exactly.
When did this whole shift happen? Because I came in obviously a year ago, and I guess it used to be like that where people didn't like sharing their techniques. When did it become like, hey, come in, train with us, learn from us? And
Jake would know that better than me.
Yeah, it's happened in my career. I think in the 90s and the early 2000s, there was still quite a stigma of visiting. But I think it was really when YouTube came out, when all this information just started flooding out there. It's like, it's kind of silly to keep things to ourselves now.
I get you. So. It's like that. It was like that in weightlifting too, because in competition you'd have the Russians, you would have the Chinese, and you would want to learn all their secrets. Nothing really came out, but I guess it makes sense because when YouTube came out, more seminars, more opportunities. They would the weightlifters over there would come here and teach their techniques. So I guess it goes hand in hand, just sharing the knowledge and the love for the sport, right?
No, that's a great point, and I loved your metaphor about the doctor, Jake. That was a great metaphor, actually.
Yeah, thank you.
You go right in, Ames.
Jake, who did you have the most fun learning from? Not saying who's the best teacher. Who did you kind of gravitate towards?
Man, I've learned so much from all those guys, and it's hard to pick one. But like early on, I got a lot of enjoyment learning leg locks from Gokor. Okay. That was back in a day when the guys on the East Coast were not really doing them, and leg locks were a little bit frowned upon. People were more interested in learning how to pass the guard, and the Brazilians didn't really favor you jumping for legs, and it was something a lot of people didn't know. So I really enjoyed learning that from Gokor.
Nice.
Other than that, I really liked Jeff Glover's attitude towards training. I came from a traditional martial arts background, which is very strict, and you always have to be respectful and all that. And I think that definitely has a place in the martial arts. But Glover was like total opposite, playful, enjoying himself every day. And I thought, you know what? If people can enjoy themselves, won't more people want to do it? And I think that's a great attitude that he has. And whenever we've trained together, we've always had such a good time. He doesn't smash you. He doesn't really care about winning every match. He's just moving and keeping it playful. And so I got a lot from that attitude as well.
Speaking of Jeff Glover, one of our longtime inspirations is Jeff Glover, and that's me and my instructor Marcos. We teach just like that. We're not that we're very like just too playful, but when we roll, it's more about enjoying the time. There's a time and place for rolling hard and trying to play your A game. But a lot of times you'll find us just trying to have fun and explore movements and trying new things. And Jeff Glover is one of the main guys that's responsible for doing that to us. Wow. I don't know if you feel that, Ames, when we train. No,
absolutely. You guys went over that yesterday. Just there's a time to kind of explore and then bring your A game, what you said, with like the higher level belts.
Sure.
Yeah. That's great. I see so many guys that refuse to work on what they're bad at, and they'll just, once they get in the bad position, they freak out and try to get back and enact their A game. And you see those guys, they don't make hardly any improvement over the years. They're still doing the same thing that they did way back when. So
absolutely,
it's definitely something to be said for putting yourself in bad positions and trying to experiment.
And from my experience of not putting myself, but allowing myself to be in these unwanted positions, these non-A game positions, these defensive positions, I feel like I can see the escape better. I could time the escape better. When I try to play more of a defensive counter game and I'm not trying to win, I feel like I escape a lot easier. Like I could see things coming better. Whereas if I was trying to play my A game and you force the pass upon me and I'm defending hard, I'm not seeing past the defense sometimes, you know? You're just trying to put up a roadblock. And a lot of times you do wind up getting passed because of it or swept because of it. So I feel like just it opens up more realm of possibility and more, more knowledge of knowing where you are when you open yourself up.
Yeah, for sure. And like, it just reminds me of last night. I was rolling with Carlos Gracie Jr. He comes to visit once a year, and we always have so much fun rolling. And by fun, I mean he applies the pressure,
Yeah.
And we got to this position where he was almost going to my back, and I thought, you know what, I could just defend here, or I could go on the offense. And it's not so smart, but it's more fun that way. So I went for a Kimura, and the way he smashed my Kimura and got free, I learned so much from that. And I thought, okay, that's how you defend the Kimura when someone's going towards your back. So now I got something to work on. Whereas if I just would have balled up and been 100% defensive, I wouldn't have learned anything.
Wow.
True. Nice.
Who taught you the most useful techniques, like on your show? Like techniques that like you were able to immediately fit into your game. We can learn so much from so many people, but not every technique you learn is going to fit directly into your game. Did any guest on your show you a technique that you're like, man, that's perfect. That's exactly what I needed for me? Yeah,
it's funny. Sometimes it's something that they'll show me right at that moment, and it's something, oftentimes when we're doing the show, they won't have anything planned. They're like, well, what do you want me to go over? And then so I'll say, hey, this is a situation I've been having trouble with, and they'll show me something right there. So it's something I can use at that moment. Other times they have something in mind and they'll show it to me, and it doesn't really click at that time, but maybe I'll come back to it months or even years later, and it'll make sense. So, but one guy that comes to mind is Tedede. He is one of the most amazing guys in the sport, to my mind, and it was one of my life goals to film him. And we went down to Brazil and filmed actually 9 instructional videos on him. Wow. Totally amazing jiu-jitsu. Wow. But his way of passing really made me excited about passing. Jiu-jitsu, most people, I would say the majority, not everybody, of course, but the majority of people like the guard. Yeah. But Tedede is the guy that really got me excited about passing. He's the guy that beat Marcelo Garcia 4 times. Every time they fought, he passed his guard every time. And so his stuff really helped me out a lot.
Awesome. Wow. Yeah, his passing game was so dynamic and like movement based, but smashing, but movement, but smashing. Like he kind of like he was the best of both worlds.
Yeah, and you can see his techniques. Cobrinha and Galvao, his 2 top students, are doing the same exact thing that he did way back when.
Wow.
Yeah, I like to think passing as you're either a standing passer, a mover passer, or a lower based, maybe off the knees, maybe combat base, maybe half guard, just kind of smash passer. What kind of passer are you?
I like to do both, actually, but if I would say one or the other, I would say a little more stand-up passing, because I'm not a big guy, and at least at Gracie Barra headquarters, I'm one of the smaller guys, so I'm not going to be able to smash many people. Yeah. So I tend to stand up more.
Rafa Mendez really inspires my passing game, like to the fullest. Every day I go on AOJ website and gain inspiration, not even for the techniques, just from watching his rolls with his students and the way he passes. So my passing game is like heavily revolving around inspiration movements that he's done, in his training. Who inspires you to pass? Is it Tedede? Besides that, anybody else?
Yeah, it would be Tedede. And, I consider him to be basically it's a bold statement, but the founder of modern jiu-jitsu. Because if you look at Tedede's teacher, you don't see, quote, modern jiu-jitsu. You don't see backstep. You don't see leg drags. You don't see a lot of the things that the modern guys are doing. So if you say you're a fan of the Mendes brothers passing or Cobrinha's or Galvao's, basically you're talking about the Tedede's passing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because Galvao and the Mendes brothers, they have a lot of the same techniques. They train with Ramon Lemos, and it's just all because Ames is trying to play catch up. I'm trying to catch him up.
Yeah, I find this the fascinating part is just hearing all this, because I like to follow Andre Galvao, so knowing where he came from and like hearing about that today makes me want to look him up and then appreciate his game and watch him more. You know what I mean? So it's really cool.
Yeah, if you haven't seen it already, check out the episode of Rolled Up that we did. I think it's probably the best episode of the series.
Wow, cool. With other than just like jiu-jitsu and technique, with you traveling all over the place, like from Brazil, US, or different places, is there anything else you learned great, like philosophy-wise, or something just about life that you took upon?
It seems.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think I learned something every day, at least certainly all my travels. But one thing I think is important is for jiu-jitsu guys to, if you're really serious, if you're a black belt, then you should go to Brazil and see the culture that created Brazilian jiu-jitsu. Okay. And then if you want to go further than that, go to Japan and think about how Japanese jiu-jitsu started and why it was so critical that the seed of jiu-jitsu was planted in Brazil. Because I've had long conversations with Carlos Gracie Jr. and he told me that if basically the jiu-jitsu that we're practicing now is the same as what the Japanese guys were doing 100 years ago.
Wow.
But if it didn't go to Brazil, it would be pretty much gone. I mean, the traditional Japanese jiu-jitsu has no sparring, and there's very little. There's not many young people doing it. It all went to judo, and that became a sport, and Olympic rules and all that. So it was very important for the seed of jiu-jitsu to get planted in Brazil, a culture that has a lot of street fights and violence, and they were able to prove the efficacy and develop the techniques even further. If it didn't go to Brazil, Japan's the safest country in the world. No one's practicing. No one's learning how to street fight in Japan. There's no point.
So would you say if the seed was planted in another country, let's say USA, let's say it was planted in, I don't know, Wisconsin or like New York City, or it was planted in Australia or Canada, would it come out differently? Would the expression of jiu-jitsu come out way different?
I think so because of the laws. We don't have too much of a history of street fights and closed door fights. It happens once in a while, but I think that kind of stuff is much more common in Brazil. Once a street fight happens in America, the police will be on you in no time.
Sure. So would you say if jiu-jitsu seed was planted in America today, we wouldn't be watching WWE, we'd be watching like some sort of cross between WWE and jiu-jitsu and big entrances and fireworks and flamethrowers, and because America's known to turn everything into like this big entertainment spectacle.
Dial it up.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I don't understand why, but pro wrestling is way more popular than jiu-jitsu in this country. It's all orchestrated, and people can understand who the good guy is and who the bad guy is.
Yes,
and the rules are simple to understand, and
they are. That's what I grew up watching.
Yeah, me too. Honestly,
I just finished watching WrestleMania.
So you're still a fan, Ames?
Yeah.
All right, we won't hold it against.
Don't judge me.
So let's go into Polaris. Polaris, what did you think of the event?
Well, first of all, anybody that does anything for jiu-jitsu and puts on an event like that is to be commended. Those are not easy to do. Absolutely. And tons of work goes into it. So I think that's pretty awesome what the guys did with that. But now, one issue I had with it was the fact that there was no submissions in the whole event. When you call something a submission-only event, people expect to see submissions. A more accurate word might be no points event, because there was no submissions. But I think they tried to get to submissions, and of course all the athletes say that they were going for it. But there's a few reasons why that I don't think we saw any. First of all, if you look at the World Championships, there's tons of submissions in the early rounds because they're mismatches. But once it gets to the finals, the number of submissions drops down dramatically.
Because you have the best fighting the best in the finals.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But usually it's not zero. Usually it's maybe 50%, 40%, maybe 30%. Some years more than others.
Sure.
But another reason why there was no submissions in my mind is that these athletes have a reputation. And they're traveling the world, teaching seminars, and they get paid a lot to do seminars, likely more so than doing super fights. So if you take a risk and get submitted, maybe your value on the seminar circuit is going to drop a little bit. So a lot of these guys, I think, are more comfortable going out there, putting on a good performance, but not losing.
Wow, interesting.
But they're okay with the tie.
I have a theory about this too. I know we talked about it. I feel I agree with you on that, and I feel what also can make a difference in a submission-only super fight event as opposed to, let's say, the Worlds, is the Worlds, it's hard to prepare for all these guys in your division. Whereas the super fight, you get to, you know that you're going to fight this one individual, and you can prepare for his game. So now you have the best going against the best, and you're both prepared for each other, which is even more neutralizing.
Right.
As opposed to a competition, a tournament, a bracket like Bernardo Faria, he submitted everybody, I believe, at the Pans, and it's hard to prepare. You can't just say I'm competing against Bernardo in the tournament. I might meet him in the third round. I better start preparing for him. You don't think like that in a tournament setting. You have to prepare for yourself and only yourself. You want to be ready for other people's games. But I feel like that was one of the reasons that could be another reason in the pot of reasons that there was 0 submissions. I don't know if you agree with that. Or?
Yeah, I certainly do. And I want to share another story. This one actually is related to Rolled Up as well. Back in 2008, it was the Nogi Worlds, and I was there sitting in the stands with a friend who had just started. I think he was maybe a white belt or a blue belt. And I said, no, he was a white belt. And I said, it was the finals, and Jeff Glover was facing Cobrinha. And I sat this guy down, and I said, his name was Vincent. I said, Vincent, you got to watch this match. This is going to be amazing. Glover and Cobrinha, they both move so much. This is going to be the best match ever. I was so excited about it. The match starts, and Cobrinha passes, Glover turtles, and Cobrinha stayed on the back of Jeff for the whole 10 minutes. And that was pretty much it. And so this guy is telling me, dude, what are you talking about? That was the most boring match ever. And I had to explain to him, I wasn't bored, but I had to explain to him that for somebody to threaten Glover so much that he couldn't move an inch, that shows the level of control that Cobrinha had. I was amazed by that. But so that was one of the main impetuses of starting Rolled Up, because I didn't want people to think that all these world champions were boring guys that just held, because they're not. Almost all the world champions are amazingly talented athletes, but again, they have a lot riding on their reputation. So in Rolled Up, I go there and I'm just some random dude that's just going to get smashed, but you get to see beautiful jiu-jitsu. It's not a show about showing how good I am. Like, I want them to show their jiu-jitsu.
It's true. Wow, good, great point, good story. Yeah, I mean that makes sense. Like jiu-jitsu is not just about exposing yourself. It's about controlling and being able to win. And like you said, the reputation is on the line. I have a couple theories of how we can make how an event with the right funding can make submissions more prevalent in their tournaments. But I would like to know, like, if somebody said, "Hey, Jake, I'm a gazillionaire from wherever, and I want you to run a submission-only or a tournament where we can have the submission be the number one way of winning in this tournament." Like, do you have any ideas of how you would put this tournament together? What kind of rules or what kind of stipulations?
Well, if he's a gazillionaire, then just pay $1 million per submission, and then you're gonna have
problem solved, baby.
So money is number one,
and he saved up. He just paid $1 million instead of a gajillion.
But that is a good point. Money is number one. The incentive of money will push somebody even harder. I mean, besides a gazillionaire, would you have anything else that would?
So many different ideas. I hear new ideas every week. It seems like, of people pitching tournament ideas to me. But you got to align what the viewer wants with money. So I think Eddie Bravo has done that. He's like, look, the viewer wants to see a submission. So the only way you're going to win this match is by a submission, and the only way you're going to get paid for that submission is if you win the whole thing.
Yeah, it's true. And you have to win in regulation. If it goes to overtime, you don't get paid for that match.
Pressure is on.
Yeah. That brings me to one of the stipulations I thought might encourage even more. Let's say you talk about a 10-minute match. Let's use EBI, for example. I feel like if you can give the incentive of, all right, if you win the match by submission and you win the whole tournament, you get $10,000 for the win. But if you finish it at the 5-minute mark, you get $15,000. If you finish it at the 2-minute mark I mean, within 2 minutes, not at 2 minutes left, within the first 2 minutes, you get $20,000. So the longer the match goes, the less money you can make as far as winning by submission. Obviously, you would need a lot more money, but I feel like that would encourage people to hunt earlier in the match for the submission.
Yep. I've heard that idea before, and I think that's a great one.
But you need $1 gazillion.
Yeah. So if you find that guy, let me know.
I will. Cool, man. So what do you think about? Let's segue into EBI. What do you think of EBI?
Oh, I think Eddie Bravo has the best format for making exciting jiu-jitsu to watch. I think we have to keep in mind that a lot of people say the Worlds should be that format or whatever. The Worlds in the Pans is a tournament that brings in thousands of people. Yeah. So there needs to be two different formats there in my mind. But EBI is all about getting the people to watch, and it's very fast paced, and we see a tap every match. So what's more rewarding than seeing that tap? There's no gray areas. It's not a match decided by an advantage, which could be subjective, or a referee that you may not agree with. So I find that rewarding, and I don't see anything else that comes up with that level of excitement in terms of getting the lay viewers interested.
Absolutely, they're running a great show. I haven't been to one yet. Have you been to it?
Yes, I've been to the last 3.
Nice. And how was it being there?
It was great. It's I've been to a UFC before many years ago, and I felt like being in the crowd, I was almost a prop because there's a lot of dead air at times, and so it's probably not like that anymore. But
it's pretty exciting now.
Okay, yeah, I imagine it is. They've grown a lot, but yeah, EBI was super fast paced. No intermissions, no times between anything. It was just bam, bam, bam.
Awesome. We can bring up Metamoris as well, since they're another one of the big tournaments. Have you been to a Metamoris, and can you compare it to any of to EBI or Polaris?
Yeah, I went to, I don't remember if it was the first one or the second one now. It wasn't nearly as exciting. The matches, 20-minute matches, I believe, are too long. It's a lot of guys will just slow down and speed up at the end. Yeah. And they've changed the rules back and forth, whether they have points or they don't have points, decisions or not. But I don't know. I find that the matchups look good on paper many times, but don't always play out to be as exciting as you would expect.
Very, very interesting. So as a matchmaker, as a person putting together a competition such as this, you should really focus on styles, right? So we can... That's another thing about you saying mismatches. Not necessarily mismatch in skill level, but mismatch in, this guy has a really good, double under game, and this other guy is really good at playing butterfly guard. So maybe this is the key for victory, and we could see a submission with this game, as opposed to putting like a really good spider guard player against a really good spider guard passer. You're going to see it nullified. Is that...
Exactly. And I don't understand, I'm not going to name any names, but I don't understand why these super fight promotions keep bringing two guys that are great guard players together. To me, that's the most boring matches in the world. Yeah. In one match, a promotion the match went an hour long, and finally they said, you know what, we got to cut you guys off. It's too long. Of course, these guys are very talented. They're great at what they do, but you can't bring them both together because they're both doing the same thing. You got to bring a guy who's a great passer versus a guy with a great guard, and then maybe we'll see something good.
Absolutely. Good point. Great point.
Styles make matchups.
That's it.
Styles make matchups.
And there's nothing wrong with that. I have another theory about like the new age leg lockers out there. You're actually the double guard pull and fighting, both guys fighting off the butt is making its way into no gi, and that's via not berimbolo and getting to the back, but via leg locks. I've been seeing a lot of that game from leg lockers. Have you?
Yeah, absolutely. The Danaher is really doing a great job at that, and I think everybody's paying attention, trying to emulate what Gary Tonin and Eddie Cummings are doing.
Yeah. Nice. I was very impressed with Eddie Cummings against Tanquinho, but I was also very impressed with Tanquinho's escapes. He was very sensitive to every leg lock attack, as well as Polaris. Very, very sensitive to every leg lock attack. That's how you know you're dealing with somebody extremely high level. And Tanquinho is really one of the only guys that's been getting out of Eddie Cummings for the past 2 years, really.
That's right. Very true.
Jake, I got a question. What is your training like right now?
Right now it's going really good. I go to Gracie Baja headquarters about 3 times a week, and then somewhere else, just a random place, maybe 1 time a week. Just last night at GBHQ, we had Carlos Gracie Jr. on the mat. Nice. Rafael Dos Anjos was there also. There's oftentimes 10 black belts on the mat, so no shortage of great roles. It's funny, when I started training there, that was really the only place in the immediate area, and I still drive 30 or 40 minutes to get there, which is kind of insane when you think about how many academies there are in Southern California. I mean, they're
on the way there, right?
Exactly. But I'm a loyal guy, and I know everybody there. And,
that's awesome.
I teach classes once in a while there as well, so I do enjoy still training there. But once in a while, I'll go somewhere else to train with someone who might be a little bit closer.
Yeah, I saw that documentary. I forgot what the documentary was from last year, just talking about SoCal and how it's like the mecca of jiu-jitsu right now, and just naming, like, going through different places. Like, man, I want to go. Yeah. Just to learn from all these people. But from a lower level belt, like from a novice, how would you go into training? What should your mindset be to getting better?
I don't think I think the main thing is finding a good teacher who's going to show you the basics. Okay. And really just to shut up your mind and just commit to it. As long as he's not a psycho, he has some good students and he's been around for a while. He's not going to take advantage of you or lead you the wrong way. Then you just have a belief in the training system, and don't worry about whether you're tired or not feeling 100%, or if you don't feel like going today or not. Just go. Just choose a training regimen. Commit yourself to it. Say, I'm going to go 2 times a week or 3 times, whatever your schedule is, and just don't waver from that. And maybe after 1 year, maybe you take a look at it again and decide if you want to change something. But I see so many people listening to their daily emotions and letting that dictate whether they train or not.
Absolutely. I agree, because today I was telling Abe when I was here earlier ago teaching a class, strength and conditioning, but I was telling him, I've been feeling off, tired. I was even debating today whether I should roll now. I'm like, I remember, don't work off your feelings, or don't base your decision off your feelings. And I feel great. Like, we finished rolling. I feel like 100% and get to talk to you. So, yeah, I agree 100% with what you just said.
Thanks. Isn't that funny how it works? Like me too. I pulled a muscle a couple days ago, and so last night I thought, man, I should just stay home and rest.
Yeah.
And I said, you know what? No, F that. I'm going to go there and train. And
exactly.
Then somehow I feel better than yesterday.
Wow. Yeah, I've never finished training and said, "Oh, that was a bad idea." It's always when you don't come in, it's just like, I should have came in. Yeah. You feel worse. Yeah. And now you're just you could write a check on the board, like, you came in, you got better, no matter what, you got 1% better. Like, I remember Ben Henderson, that was my favorite thing. He always said, get 1% better every time you come in. Don't expect to make big leaps and bounds. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Jake, let's get into meditation. I know this is something you want to talk about. What is the value of meditation practice, whether it's for life, for jiu-jitsu, martial arts, anything, really?
Man, that's a big one. That meditation has been the most difficult thing I've ever done, but also the most rewarding. Even more difficult and more rewarding than jiu-jitsu. And it sounds crazy to say that, because I've been beat up a lot in jiu-jitsu. Yeah. But with meditation, zazen, seated meditation, there's only one technique. And you think about jiu-jitsu, the number of techniques is growing every day. But in meditation, you're using the same technique that people have been doing for over 2,500 years, and you're not really allowed to change that. And there's a beauty in that simplicity. But it's amazing how difficult it can be just sitting there with your thoughts, and I love it. It's something I did real seriously for 10 years in a group setting, both in America and in Japan.
Okay.
And there was times I should back up. People have a lot of different ideas about what meditation is, and there's certainly many different schools, just like there's different schools in jiu-jitsu. Sure. The one I did was the most strict that I ever heard of. We would sit once a week for 2 hours a session.
Wow.
During the week, it was just on your own at home. But that 2-hour session was brutal. And the guy that would lead the class, you would sit there cross-legged.
Mm-hmm.
And after a while, you get an itch, you get uncomfortable, you want to move. And the moment you would move, he would just yell at you, and and you weren't allowed to move. And if you did move, he might ask you just to leave.
Not an inch.
No, not an inch.
He would yell at me. I would have been kicked out.
So what did he ask you? What would you call the person that was leading the meditation?
The Roshi.
The Roshi. What did the Roshi tell you guys to think about? You obviously have to stay still, but did he give you things that you should try to focus your thoughts on?
Yeah, in the beginning, all you do is count your breaths, 1 through 10. Each time you exhale, and then after you get to 10, you go back to 1.
Mm-hmm.
And it's amazing. If you try that, most people can't make it to 10. They'll make it to 3 or 4, and then their mind is off somewhere thinking about what they're going to eat for lunch or whatever. So it's really about getting control of the mind and learning how to stay in the present moment. But not only the mental benefits, the physical benefits are tremendous. You lose the tension in your shoulders, which most people carry around.
Mm-hmm.
You develop your posture, your breathing. These are things that aren't really talked about in jiu-jitsu or very many martial arts, but it's things that help you on the mat and off the mat.
Wow, that's cool. I downloaded an app called Headspace where it was like 10 minutes per session. So when you said 2 hours, like, wow, I'm really a rookie. And they did the same thing. Like they would lead you to a point where you just count your breaths, and it would be hard to get to 10. Like I would concentrate super, super hard on each breath.
Right. Yeah, I've heard people have used that app, and I think it's great if it helps you. And I have a friend that's been using it too. That's awesome. But I really think that if you want, put it this way, if you're going to practice jiu-jitsu, do you want to practice it by yourself? Or do you want to practice it with other people?
That's true.
And,
great point.
They hold you accountable.
They hold you accountable. You can't scratch your nose when you want to. You can't get up and stretch your legs when you want to. You have to stick with it. And so training in a group setting is way more beneficial. But finding a good group is really tough. I've had a lot of guys ask me, like, hey, where can I find a place like you trained? And there's just really not many places that train with that type of attitude. But if you can, the results are tremendous in my mind.
And do you still do 2 hours a day, or what is your meditation formula now?
Nowadays, I just do it on my own. I think I have enough of a foundation to be fine. But if I had started on my own, I don't think I would have ever gotten anywhere.
What do you do now? Do you do every day for a certain amount of time a day?
Yep. Right now, it's a very simple every day, about 10 minutes. I have a little space in my house set up and just sit on the cushion, set the time for 10 minutes. Hope the dogs don't interrupt me. And then that's it. But you mentioned you're using Headspace. I think that's fine to get started. But after a while, if you really want the benefits, you have to increase that time. And it's tough for most people, especially in this day and age. There's so many other things to do. And meditation is not a fun thing to do by any means.
It's not the norm, right? It's not
so that 2 hours kind of broke you into it. And you did that for a while. And now that you've adapted to being able to meditate, now you do it on your own. Now you do the 10 minutes, a shorter session. Is that what you're saying? Like you started, you had to be broken almost, or
pretty much,
reformatted?
Yep. One phrase that I hear that a lot of people use is monkey mind. Your mind is jumping from topic to topic, and most people's minds are so foggy they're not able to really focus. So once you can train your mind to just stay in the present moment and stop thinking about the past or the future, you'll live 100% in the moment. But that's not something that you just get and you're done. You always have to keep reminding it. The mind is a mischievous beast.
I agree. It makes sense with the whole group setting that you said. It's like in jiu-jitsu or when you're training with friends, it's just you excel a lot more, and just making the effort. For anyone that's hearing 2 hours, that sounds like a lot, but if you want to get better, if you want to improve as a person, you got to put the effort in, no matter what, whether your diet or just
true.
Right. Just to give you an idea of the intensity the lineage that I studied, my teacher's teacher's teacher, a guy in Japan, he would sit with his friend, and they would sit face to face, and they put a wooden sword, a bokan, in between them. And their agreement was the first person to fall asleep, the other guy would pick up the sword and whack him on the head. But guess what? They would sit for an hour, very strictly and without losing attention, because nobody wants to get hit in the head with a sword.
Me. I guess me and Abel try that right afterward.
Or we leave a gi on. The first guy to fall asleep gets to get choked out.
That sounds like a good plan.
So how has that helped your jiu-jitsu? Have you felt like this noticeable difference, or is it very incremental?
Yeah, lots of ways. One thing is just maintaining composure in uncomfortable situations. When you're sitting by yourself for 2 hours, you're going to get so tense, so angry, in so much pain. There was times where I really thought I was going to die. Wow. The pain was that intense. And then I would try to move, and they would yell at me, "Don't move," and I'd be like, I'm going to die. This is it. and then somehow that pushes you through to the next level. And so after dealing with that, somebody has their forearm across my neck or whatever. It's like, so what? I'm not going to die from this. So it allows me to be comfortable in uncomfortable situations. Also, breathing. Meditation is all about proper breathing. So I see so many people breathing through their mouth or huffing and puffing, and really, you shouldn't have to do that if you're breathing efficiently. By that I mean breathing through your diaphragm and not through your chest.
Sure. And I hate to beat the dead horse, but like Rickson Gracie talked about that many years ago, and he was very into the breath, focusing on the breath during your jiu-jitsu. And when you do that, I feel like that is some sort of a meditation. If you can piggyback on that, like while you're rolling, don't think about the moves. You've drilled enough, you've trained enough. Just focus on the breath and let your body do its duty. Let the drills just come out. Can that be considered a form of meditation then? Yeah,
for sure. And you can even not only focus on your breath, but focusing on your partner's breath. If you're choking them and you can tell they're holding their breath, well, you just need to hold that choke a little bit longer and tap. Or before they're going to do something big, oftentimes they'll inhale and they'll hold their breath. They're like, oh, you're going to fall back for a footlock right now. Okay, I'm ready for that.
Oh, nice. Wow, I never thought about that.
My golden nugget.
The X factor tomorrow.
Practice that tomorrow. That's awesome.
Awesome. Really good. Wow. I got to try that. That's really interesting. Really interesting. So let's say somebody like us who doesn't meditate at all, at least I don't, can you give us some guidelines on where to start, how to begin? I can't do 2 hours. I can't find a group. What should I do? Headspace is $1 to download. I don't know what to do. Can you give somebody an idea of how they can get into meditation and how they can start without scaring them away?
Yeah. I mean, ideally, you find a group of like-minded people, and that setting is going to keep you on track. And people are going to have so many questions in the beginning. You need someone to really answer those for you. So if you can find a group, that's the best. Okay. But if for some reason you just absolutely can't, then I guess Headspace is probably a good one. Like I said, I haven't used it, but the importance is consistency, not length. So if you can only train for – If you think 10 minutes is too much, which it's going to feel like a long time in the beginning, then start with 3 minutes and then increase that each week by 1 minute until you get to 10 minutes. Exactly. But the important thing is to make it part of your daily schedule. And a lot of people ask, what time of day is best? And in my mind, morning is the best before you have all these thoughts about the things that have happened in the day. But either first thing in the morning or first thing before you go to bed, those two are both two good times to do it.
So even if I can't find a group, I can grab one of my friends that I train with at jiu-jitsu and come before class or meet up earlier and do, like you said, we both sit in front of each other and hold each other accountable. So that's a group. It doesn't have to be a big group, is what you're saying.
That's right.
Awesome.
That's right.
We got to try this, Ames.
Yeah, like right after this.
Like right now.
Yeah, accountable.
Yeah.
Yep, and one other thing to remember is don't close your eyes. If you close your eyes, you'll probably fall asleep or you'll think about other things too much. So the teaching that I follow is lowering your gaze about 45 degrees towards the ground, and so you keep your eyes open the whole time.
Okay, like a soft kind of gaze.
And what's a good stance or seated position to be in?
The half lotus position is what's most common, where if you cross your legs with one leg on top of the other.
Okay.
And what if somebody is just not flexible enough to do that?
Then you can sit Indian style, or if they have bad knees, you can sit in a chair, but you don't want to be sitting back in a chair. You want to be sitting at attention with your back straight.
Okay, cool.
But it's also very important to get a cushion. If there's meditation cushions you can get, or just a pillow and fold it in half. You need something to go underneath the base of your tailbone to elevate you just a little bit, so you're not leaning back.
Okay.
Oh,
Cool.
okay. Interesting. Speaking of breathing, have you heard of Wim Hof? Have you tried his method of breathing? I'm curious about that.
Yeah, I've heard of him. I haven't tried it, but when I was younger, I trained Aikido for 20 years, and the guy I got to train with the first 10th degree black belt. That's as high as it goes. He's no longer living, but we did some cold water training in Japan where you would douse yourself with buckets of cold water. And I took that training back home, and I did that every morning for a few months, and I really saw the benefit in that. It just wakes you up instantly, and you feel that shock of the cold. And I think there's definitely something to that, and I've found that you can definitely lower your response to that. You can get to the point where cold doesn't bother you. So I think Wim is definitely onto something there.
Yeah, I personally have tried his breathing techniques and his cold water therapy. I didn't dive too much into the cold water therapy as much as I did into the breathing. And basically, you take these very specific types of breaths where you deep inhale, half exhale, and you do that for 40 or 50 breaths, and then you have to hold your breath, and you have to hold your breath for as long as you can, and do sets of that. And what I found when I was holding my breath is, it was, I don't know, I thought maybe I was kind of meditating. Honestly, if I ever did meditate, that was probably the closest thing to it, because I had to shut my mind off. The second I started thinking or worrying, I would lose my breath, and I would feel like I need to open my mouth and breathe again. But the times that I was able to stay focused and not think about anything, and not even think about the breath itself, just think about nothingness or one point on the wall or something, I was able to hold my breath for 3.5 minutes, 4 minutes, like really long. But I would do the same method and think, and I would only be able to hold it for 1.5 minutes. So I feel like if I ever did meditation, that was the closest thing too.
Yeah, you were one with the training. Your mind wasn't focusing on anything else.
Nice.
Have you ever seen Scott Son? And he had a DVD called Reset many years ago. Did you ever hear about it? It was all about breathing and training.
Yes, I didn't see it. We sold it at one point, but no, I never watched it.
Nice.
Okay. Yeah, he goes into about breathing techniques he learned in Russia of warming up and cooling down, and in competition breaths to get you kind of, I don't know, acclimated or energetic. I think, for people who are interested, that's a very good watch, definitely.
Yeah, there are so many different breathing methods in Asia, India in particular, and Japan and elsewhere. It's almost a question of like, okay, which one are you going to pick? You got to pick one and really go for it, because it's you got to put the time in.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Man.
Well, Jake, I know you got to go. I want to be mindful of your time. We really, really genuinely appreciate you coming on. The stories you gave, the lessons you've taught. And the recommendations are priceless. I think we're really going to try this meditation thing. We really appreciate you coming on, my friend.
Thank you so
Hey,
much.
thanks a lot for having me on. I had a great time. You guys are good at what you do.
Thanks, man.
Thank
Hopefully
you.
have you on again.
And where
Sounds
can people, for people who don't know who you are, which they should, where can people reach you on social media, websites, stuff like that?
On social media, I use Instagram the most. I'm Budo Jake there, and also on Twitter and Facebook, but I do use Instagram the most. And on YouTube, if you want to check out my shows, I do 2 different shows, This Week in BJJ and Rolled Up. Both of those are on the BudoVideos YouTube channel.
Awesome.
Excellent. Thank you so much, and I definitely want to talk to you soon, my friend.
Sounds good. Thanks for the call, guys.
Take care, brother.
All right, bye.